I signed the divorce papers at 6:42 a.m. Coffee, black, laptop closed, no hesitation. Her words still echoed, "I'm not here to play wife." Fine. Then don't. She thought I'd beg, cry. She thought silence meant weakness, but I was planning her exit long before she rehearsed that line. I let her call me worthless. And then I showed her what a worthless man can do to a career, a reputation, a legacy built on lies. I didn't scream. I didn't hit back. I just moved the pieces, one by one. In the next 60 minutes, you'll see what happens when a quiet man reaches his limit. And if you've ever sat across the dinner table, feeling invisible in your own home, this story is yours too. Subscribe. Stay with me. You haven't seen the last move yet. She called me worthless, and yet I'm the one who never missed a mortgage payment. I'm Mark Davis, 42, accountant, lived in the same house for 12 years, old Ford F-150, same coffee every morning, black 2 sugars in a chipped Navy mug I refuse to throw away. People think quiet men are boring, predictable, weak, but quiet men, we watch, we notice, we remember everything. You don't survive a cold marriage for 8 years by being naive. You survive it by understanding that silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. And I had a front row seat to every red flag she thought I didn't catch. I kept smiling, kept pouring coffee, kept playing the role, until I realized something chilling. She wasn't just losing interest, she was replacing me. And before I ever confronted her, I made sure our finances were bulletproof. Before you face a storm, you check your roof. That morning, I opened our joint account. The numbers didn't lie. Her shopping sprees, boutique hotel stays, charges I didn't recognize. Then I pulled out the mortgage file. My name primary, her name secondary. One good move I made back in 2014, thank God. I sat there, hands steady, heart like ice. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore, it was about security. And no matter how this ended, I wasn't going to let her walk away with my roof, my savings, my years of sacrifice. So I started closing in. One password changed, one financial advisor called, one transfer clean and legal. Before I ever said a word to Emily, I'd already taken her out of the equation. Because when a man is done being used, he doesn't yell, he prepares. And the moment I saw her that night, I knew it was time to finish the act. She begged me to come, said it mattered for her image, so I put on my one good suit, ironed my shirt, and smiled for show. Downtown hotel, big chandelier, music too loud, laughter too fake. I hate these things where middle managers pretend they're changing the world with PowerPoint slides, where wives forget their husbands exist once the champagne starts flowing. I planted myself near the coat rack, best vantage point, close to the exit. That's when I heard her voice, clear. Loud, sharp like broken glass. Honestly, I could dump him tomorrow. He's completely worthless to me now. My breath didn't catch. My hands didn't shake. But my heart, it cracked in half like thin ice under a heavy boot. And just as I turned, I saw her hand brush against her boss's arm, smiling, flirting, acting like I never existed. That night didn't break me. It confirmed what I already knew. And from that moment on, I wasn't her husband. I was her reckoning. I didn't make a scene, didn't throw a drink, didn't confront her. I just picked up my coat and walked out. The ballroom behind me buzzed with fake laughter and champagne bubbles. But outside, the wind slapped my face like truth finally catching up. It was sharp, honest, cold. I stood under a streetlight alone. Not confused, clarified, because sometimes when a man says nothing, he's not being weak, he's declaring war in silence. You see, anger fades, but strategy sticks. I didn't yell at Emily that night because I didn't want an argument. I wanted evidence, and I knew just the guy to help me find it. So I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in 2 years. Ryan Carter, ex-law school buddy, now in corporate compliance at a Fortune 500, smart, quiet, knows where the skeletons hide. He picked up on the second ring. Mark, been a minute. Everything okay? I didn't waste time. Need you to verify something at the Hallbrook event. Tonight. I dropped names, patterns, the exact champagne smile my wife flashed when she lied, and one sentence sealed it. Michael Turner's touching her like they're married, and it's not to each other. Ryan's tone changed. Curious became serious. I'll head over. 10 minutes. You'll want a front row seat for what's coming. As I hung up, my heart was still calm, not because I forgave her, but because I had just pulled the first domino. And Ryan, he doesn't just show up. He documents. Text after text after text. Ryan was already inside the ballroom, moving through the crowd like a ghost in a suit. He described it all in perfect detail. Emily, still glowing, turned her hand on her lower back, lingering longer than it should. Her voice loud, drunk, bragging about how she completely restructured the department. That's funny, because I'm pretty sure someone else did that work. Then Ryan's next message popped up. Harrison just walked in. Harrison Reed, regional director known for firing people mid-sentence. And tonight, he wasn't smiling. Red face, crooked tie, shoulders stiff with rage. The music didn't stop, but the room went silent. Phones came out, eyes locked on Emily. And just like that, the storm finally walked through the front door. And she had no idea it was headed straight for her. When the storm came, it didn't knock. It roared. Emily was mid-laugh when Harrison's voice cut through the room like a chainsaw through silence. Jessica Brooks, he barked, using her full name like a courtroom summons. She turned, smirk fading just in time to knock her champagne off the table. The glass shattered. The liquid spilled across her dress like guilt made visible. Her face pale, frozen, like someone realizing the gun was loaded. Harrison didn't stop. You think this company is your damn playground? Gasps. People stepped back physically, creating distance like she was contagious. Turner tried to interject wrong move. Harrison shoved him aside like office furniture. Phones went up, eyes locked on Emily. And in that moment, she wasn't the star of the party anymore. She was the scandal. The room didn't explode. It imploded quiet, deadly, devastating. Someone whispered, "Are you filming this?" Then 5 phones were out. Then 10. Then the whole room. One woman near the bar was already uploading. Another was live streaming to her work drama group chat. Emily stood in the center like a statue made of shame. Her heels suddenly seemed too high. Her voice missing. That confident smirk gone. I wasn't there in person, but I didn't have to be. Ryan's text painted the picture better than any video ever could. She's trembling. Her hands won't stop fidgeting. People are backing away like she's radioactive. Harrison wasn't yelling anymore. He didn't have to. The footage was doing it for him. And as Ryan wrote, she just realized this won't stay in this room. While her career crumbled under ballroom lighting, I was 3 blocks away, driving, alone. The freeway was quiet. Even the radio knew to shut up. I pulled into a gas station, fluorescent lights buzzing like cheap judgment, and poured the worst coffee I've ever had. Then I opened my notebook. Page 1, Operation Exit Strategy. Separate bank accounts, remove name from titles, secure legal counsel, backup, everything. I wasn't planning revenge. I was securing freedom because by morning, she'd still be spinning stories. But I'd already be 3 steps ahead, and every move from this point forward documented, time-stamped, clean. They say the best revenge is living well. They're wrong. The best revenge is getting your entire life back before the other person even knows they lost control. And I had until 8 a.m. to make it count. They say divorce is emotional, but this part was surgical. At 2:17 a.m., I called the bank. "Hi, I need to close a joint account. Yes, I'm the primary. Yes, I have the documents." They verified everything, name, SSN passcodes. It was routine for them, but for me, it was war fought with keystrokes. Each click severed a rope she thought was hers to pull. The Europe trip blocked. The emergency savings frozen. The just-in-case funds. Now just mine. I wasn't doing this out of spite. I was doing it for protection. Because a man who's called worthless has 2 options. Cry or take back everything. My phone vibrated. A cold little message lit the screen. Joint account closed. It wasn't loud. It didn't echo. But it hit like thunder inside my chest. And next, I went after the house. Real estate is funny. We build dreams on concrete. But forget the paperwork is what holds the power. I pulled out the deed. Her name was on it. Barely. Secondary signer. No joint survivorship clause. No prenup. Just assumptions and a signature. The next call was to a property lawyer I found at 3 a.m. Quick consult. Paid in full. She reviewed the documents in silence, then said the magic words. "You've got leverage here." Turns out, being the boring guy who keeps records, it finally paid off. Every tax form, every email, every insurance statement archived, dated, downloaded, ready to present. I wasn't burning the house down. I was reclaiming it, brick by brick, clause by clause. And while she was probably just getting home wobbling on her heels and reeking of regret, I was preparing to erase her name from the life she never valued. By 4:12 a.m., I'd moved from defensive to undeniable. Insurance adjusted, beneficiary changed, her name removed from every policy that had my name on it. Next stop, the DMV site, 2 vehicles, both in my name. But I made it official, and it wasn't just about documents, it was about peace of mind. You can't rebuild a life on shaky ground, and when the ground under your feet starts to shake, you don't scream, you start pouring concrete. It's amazing how fast you can clean house when you stop asking for permission. I hit submit on the last form. Confirmation popped up, transfer completed. Not flashy, not cinematic, but powerful. Because every checkbox ticked meant one less weapon she could use, and one more layer of armor for the man she once thought would just roll over. The closet was the last thing to go. I'd already moved the paperwork, the money, the power. Now it was time to move me. Shirts folded, suits bagged, even the college sweatshirt she used to steal when she was pretending we were happy. Hangers swayed in the AC breeze like the ghosts of a marriage. That half of the closet mine was now a vacuum. Quiet, clean, like I had never lived there at all. I didn't slam the drawers, didn't rip anything. Just packed with the same care I used to show her on Sunday mornings. And when I zipped the final suitcase, I stood there staring into that hollow space like it was my side of the story finally empty of excuses. Not a single goodbye, just absence screaming louder than words ever could. And before I walked out, I left her something. I didn't leave a letter. I left a USB drive, labeled Play Me. Inside, just her voice that night. The exact moment she said it. He's worthless. I could dump him tomorrow. Crystal clear. No background noise. Just her. Being herself. I recorded it on my phone without flinching. Then cleaned the audio, saved it twice, and dropped it into a folder named Truth. That file wasn't revenge. It was reality. I sealed it in a plain envelope and placed it on the kitchen counter right next to the coffee machine. Because when she walked in the next morning, before she could lie, deflect, or fake a single tear, she'd hear herself. No edits, no context, no way out. And I'd be sitting right there when the weight of her own words finally crushed her. The kitchen felt colder that morning. Same cabinets, same counter, but everything felt different, like the house knew the lie had expired. I brewed coffee, same way I always did, drip slow, no cream. She walked in around 7:12 a.m., makeup smeared, eyes red, hair in that halfway up mess that says I've been crying, but I still want control. She didn't say a word, just stood there in that glittery dress from the night before, now stained with cheap champagne and corporate disgrace. I didn't look up right away, didn't need to, because I could feel the shift in the air, the shame, the panic, the realization that I wasn't broken. I was busy. I slid the envelope across the table. Before you say anything, play this. She hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw her world start to collapse. She came at me first, accusations flying. You ruined everything, my career, my life, my future. Her voice cracked. Her hand slammed the counter. She thought volume equaled power. I didn't rise, didn't shout, didn't even blink. I let her run out of steam like a storm that burns itself empty. Then I closed my laptop, slow, deliberate, and when the screen turned back toward her, it wasn't a mirror. It was a verdict. Divorce papers, already filed. Bank transfers, already cleared. She froze, eyes darting from page to page like a prisoner realizing the cell door had been shut hours ago. I didn't need to scream. The documents were louder than rage, and as her breathing quickened, she whispered the one line every guilty person clings to. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Shaky, thin, almost childlike. You can't do this. Her fingers curled white around the edge of the table, knuckles trembling, the same hands that used to scroll through Instagram, bragging about vacations I paid for. For once, she wasn't the one in control, and she knew it. I leaned back in my chair, steady, calm, the opposite of the wreck standing in front of me. Then I gave her the simplest truth a man can give. I already did. 4 words. That's all it took. No shouting. No gloating, just the cold finality of a door locking shut. Her eyes flickered anger, fear, disbelief, all crashing together, but beneath it all was the first glimpse of respect, because she finally understood the quiet man she called worthless had drawn the line, and I wasn't stepping back. Respect. That's what this was always about. Not money, not sex, not status. Respect. I remembered every dinner where she rolled her eyes at my stories. Every night she scrolled her phone instead of talking. Every cold shoulder in the backyard where silence grew heavier than the air itself. 8 years of being treated like a placeholder. 8 years of swallowing pride to keep the peace. But peace without respect, that's not marriage. That's a prison. And I realized something brutal in that kitchen. I would rather walk away with nothing than stay one more day being treated like I was nothing. My voice was calm when I told her I'm not bargaining my dignity for your version of love. She stared at me stunned because for the first time, she wasn't talking to her husband. She was talking to the man who finally set himself free. Her phone buzzed. Mom. She hesitated, then answered on speaker. Bad move. Margaret Brooks didn't waste time with greetings. Her voice sliced through the kitchen. Why am I getting notices your name is disappearing off every asset condo, cars, even the damn insurance? Emily stammered, scrambling for excuses, but Margaret didn't let her breathe. I've been on the phone with lawyers all morning. Your husband planned this down to the decimal. Emily's face drained of color. Mine stayed calm, sipping coffee. Then Margaret delivered the final cut. You always thought quiet men are weak. They're not. They plan. They watch. And when they move, it's already too late. The line went dead. Emily's last safety net had just been cut by her own mother, and I knew the fallout wouldn't stay inside these walls. It was about to spill into the world. It started with a whisper, then a clip. Then the internet did what it always does. It multiplied. The video from that ballroom, her laugh, her words, her smirk, was now everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, even LinkedIn, captioned with brutal lines like, when karma shows up at the office party. I didn't share it. I didn't have to. People I hadn't spoken to in years were sending me the link. One text from my cousin hit hardest, dude. Is this Emily? I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because by then, she wasn't my problem. She was a headline, and nothing spreads faster than schadenfreude served cold. The internet was shredding her carefully curated image, and the company wasn't far behind. Corporate wheels turned slow except when scandal lights a fire. By noon, Halbrook and Partners had moved. HR emails flying, compliance group chats buzzing, and then the official ping mandatory meeting. 2:00 p.m. Conference room B. Translation, bring your handbook, bring your badge, and brace yourself. Ryan confirmed it in real time. The executive team was assembling like a tribunal. Legal, HR, compliance. Harrison at the head of the table. Emily wasn't walking into a meeting. She was walking into her own trial. And this wasn't about whispers anymore. This was policy. This was paperwork. This was the machine turning against her. The company that once applauded her now wanted her gone, and they were sharpening the knife. And at 2 p.m., she'd finally understand what it feels like to be disposable. At 200 sharp, the conference room looked less like a meeting and more like a courtroom. HR on the left, legal on the right, compliance dead center. And Harrison Reed at the head of the table, jaw clenched, eyes locked forward. One chair sat by itself directly across from them, waiting for Emily. She walked in trying to look composed, but the silence in that room was thicker than concrete. No handshakes, no smiles, just the dull hum of the projector flickering to life. Then the first slide hit the screen, hotel invoices. Miami, Chicago, San Francisco, 2 guests, all billed to Halbrook corporate accounts. Emily's jaw tightened. Her fingers tapped the table, but the evidence spoke louder than any excuse she could reach for. And this was only the beginning. The room didn't move, didn't breathe. Legal pressed a key and the speakers came alive. Her voice, Turner's voice, coordinating business trips, joking about how to hide hotel charges. Every word matched the invoices on the screen. Every laugh dug the hole deeper. Emily's hands shook as she reached for her water glass. It rattled against the table before she could even lift it. Harrison leaned forward, his voice like a verdict. Your employment is terminated. Effective immediately. No debate. No delay. Just finality. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. because what defense can you make when your own voice convicts you? The HR rep slid papers across the table. Legal watched. Compliance took notes. Emily wasn't an employee anymore. She was evidence, and the company had already decided what to do with her. By 3:40, it was over. Security escorted her out. A cardboard box in her hands, corporate tradition for the condemned. Inside, a tiny cactus half dead, a framed photo from some office Christmas party, and a chipped mug that read Girl Boss. 8 years of climbing, scheming, posturing, all packed into a box worth less than a lunch special. I watched from across the street, sitting in my truck, coffee in hand, calm. She stepped through those glass doors like she was walking underwater. Head down, shoulders caved, the heels she loved so much clicking hollow against the pavement. For one brief moment, her eyes met mine through the windshield. She froze. I didn't smile, didn't wave, didn't even nod. Just started the engine and drove away. Because some endings don't need words, just the sound of a door closing behind you. She froze on the sidewalk box in her arms, waiting for some reaction. But there was nothing. No wave, no smirk, no cheap thrill of revenge. I turned the key. The truck engine rumbled alive, hands steady on the wheel, eyes forward, and then I did the one thing she never expected. I left. No honk, no last look, just the sound of tires rolling away, erasing 8 years in the time it takes to change lanes, because silence is louder than victory laps. And walking away without a word, that's the cleanest cut a man can make. She thought this was the end of my story, but as the city lights blurred in my rear view, I knew it was only the beginning. Driving home, memories ambushed me. Family barbecues where she laughed louder at other men's jokes. Christmas dinners where my chair felt like it was filled by a stranger. The polite thank yous she gave me in front of friends, words that sounded more like performance than love. And the empty chair at our table wasn't just furniture. It was proof. Proof I had been alone for a long time. Long before she ever said the word worthless. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Because what good is a marriage if the person beside you makes you feel lonelier than being by yourself? That was the night I admitted it. I hadn't lost a partner. I'd lost a prison guard. And freedom, even bitter, tastes better than chains. Which is why the very next morning, I found a new place to start over. The apartment wasn't much. 1 bedroom, beige carpet, white walls that smelled of fresh paint. But it was mine. No glittery dresses hanging in the closet. No condescending laughter echoing off the drywall. Just quiet. A quiet that felt like oxygen. I signed the lease, shook the landlord's hand, and slid the key into my pocket. That metal click, small, sharp, sounded louder than any fight we ever had. Independence doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes with a beige hallway, a deadbolt, and a fridge stocked with nothing but takeout and beer. And as I locked the door behind me, I realized I wasn't hiding from anything. I was building something new. The man she called worthless had just claimed his first true home. And with that key in my hand, I was ready to take the next step: legal war. By Monday morning, the first call I made wasn't to her. It was to a lawyer. I emailed the files I'd collected, deeds, bank records, screenshots, even the USB with her own words. Every breadcrumb laid out in a folder marked prepared. That afternoon, I sat across from a man who had seen it all. Divorces messier than crime scenes. Spouses who left nothing but wreckage behind. He flipped through my documents page by page, not rushing. When he finally looked up, he didn't smile. He just said, "You're already one step ahead. Most men come to me after the damage. You prepared before the fire." That was the moment I knew I wasn't just surviving this. I was leading it. And Emily. She was already 2 steps behind, chasing a battle she'd already lost. Next, I cut the cord. I set up filters her emails auto-forwarded to my lawyer, changed my mailing address to the new apartment, canceled subscriptions she'd latched onto, and the ring, the symbol of promises she never kept. I placed it in a plain box, taped shut, and dropped it with the rest of her things. No ceremony, no speeches, just boundaries. The last message I ever sent her was 6 words: all future communication via legal counsel. No anger, no bitterness, just rules. And in that moment, I realized silence wasn't just my defense. It was my weapon. Because when you stop giving someone access to your time, your inbox, your mind, you take back more than freedom. You take back yourself. A lot of men would have exploded that night. screamed across the ballroom, thrown a glass, made headlines for the wrong reasons. I played the tape forward in my mind. Anger would have given her sympathy. Chaos would have made me look like the villain. Noise would have buried the truth. But silence. Silence was surgical. It captured her words, not mine. It built evidence, not excuses. And when the dust settled, nobody remembered me as the angry husband. They remembered her as the woman who called her own marriage worthless. That's why I bit my tongue, grabbed my coat, and walked out. Not because I was weak, but because I knew one truth most men forget. Sometimes the sharpest weapon isn't rage. It's silence sharpened into strategy. And my silence was already cutting her life apart. I used to chase recognition, the promotion I didn't get because I was too safe, the meetings where louder men took credit for my work, the nights Emily reminded me I wasn't ambitious enough. For years, I swallowed it, smiled, kept my head down, told myself hard work would speak louder than politics. But that morning, sitting in my quiet apartment sipping coffee that finally tasted good, I realized something. I'd been waiting for other people to validate me, her, my bosses, even society. And I was done waiting. I didn't need a corner office or a pat on the back. I needed to respect myself first, because the moment you stop begging for recognition, you take it back. And I wasn't just some safe accountant anymore. I was the man who rewrote the ending of my own story. Ryan didn't just check in. He delivered. A full report landed in my inbox, timestamps, compliance notes, a neat little bow tied on months of their arrogance. Hotel invoices, calendar invites, expense claims. Every line item matched like gears in a clock. Ryan had annotated everything color-coded, cross-referenced, even pulled Turner's travel schedule and compared it to Emily's business trips. The verdict: they weren't just sloppy, they were reckless. And now their recklessness had a paper trail, one that led straight to corporate legal. I scrolled through the pages slowly, my chest steady, my pulse calm. This wasn't rumor. This wasn't speculation. This was truth, undeniable, documented, stamped. And it wasn't just Emily's name on those files. It was Turner's, too. And his fall was about to echo even louder. By Thursday, Turner's mask cracked. An internal memo leaked, effective immediately. Michael Turner's employment is terminated. The man who thought he was untouchable, undone by his own hands. But the fallout didn't stop at the office. His wife filed for divorce that same day. Papers served, cold, swift. And then came the photo, posted online, her left hand bare, the gold ring gone, tossed aside. Captioned with 3 words, "Freedom feels lighter." It spread like wildfire, not just another meme, but a symbol. The predator of the boardroom, stripped down to a cautionary tale. And as I scrolled, I realized justice doesn't always come from courtrooms. Sometimes it comes from the quiet exposure of truth. Turner lost his empire. Emily lost her mask. And me, I had nothing left to lose, which meant I had everything to gain. Corporate punishment doesn't stop at a pink slip. It comes in envelopes. By the end of the week, Emily got her first letter. Certified mail. Hallbrook and Partners stamped across the top. Inside, a demand repay misused funds, hotel bills, flights, entertainment expenses coded as client dinners. Every receipt was a nail, every signature a chain. This wasn't gossip anymore. It was legal debt. And I knew this was just the first drop. More letters would follow. More claims, more weight, pressing down until even breathing felt expensive. She used to spend company money like it was monopoly cash. Now every dollar had a claw behind it dragging her deeper. I didn't send those letters, but I didn't have to. The system she thought she could game was finally cashing its check. And while she faced the storm, I was already shoring up my own ground. While she drowned in debt, I built air. I opened a fresh spreadsheet, neat rows of numbers staring back like allies. Column A, emergency fund. Column B, rent. Column C, 12-month target. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't grand, but it was mine. For the first time in years, my money wasn't tied to someone else's ego. It was tied to my survival. Every paycheck would stack into a buffer. 3 months, 6 months, 12. A safety wall she could never touch. I wasn't thinking about vacations or new cars. I was thinking about a roof over my head, food in the fridge, and the kind of independence that makes a man breathe easier at night. It wasn't glamorous, but it was freedom written in numbers. And as I hit save on that spreadsheet, I realized I wasn't rebuilding. I was redesigning. That night, there was no chaos, No screaming, just me, a pot of pasta, and the hum of the stove fan. I set the table for one, dimmed the light to a warm glow, opened East of Eden by Steinbeck. The words rolled slow, heavy, honest, like they were written for men who've carried silence longer than they should. I twirled the pasta, took a sip of wine, and realized something rare. Peace has its own sound. It's the drip of coffee, the hiss of boiling water, the whisper of pages turning in an empty kitchen. For years, my nights had been filled with criticism, cold shoulders, and the scraping sound of someone scrolling through a phone instead of listening. But this night, I didn't feel empty. I felt whole. Because sometimes solitude isn't punishment. It's the first real luxury. One night, I took a marker and wrote 3 rules on a yellow sticky note, stuck it to the fridge where I'd see it every morning. Rule 1, no more minimizing myself. Rule 2, no contact with toxicity. Rule 3, respect isn't negotiable. They weren't just rules, they were promises to me, from me. For years, I traded dignity for keeping the peace. I let her cut me down, laugh at my ambition, call me safe like it was an insult. Never again. I wasn't angry as I wrote those words. I was calm, grounded, like a man setting boundary lines around a house he finally owned. And when I stepped back and read them out loud, I realized I'd made a new contract. Not with Emily, not with the world, with myself. The first bills at the new place were nothing special. Electric, water, internet. But when I logged in and paid them one by one, each click echoed like freedom. No second guessing, no questions about why I spent what I earned, no fights over priorities that weren't mine. Just me, my income, my choices. And when the confirmation screen stacked up, a thought hit me harder than any paycheck ever had. I can take care of myself. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't Instagram-worthy, but it was honest. For the first time in years, I felt the ground under my feet solidify. Because survival isn't just food and rent. It's knowing you don't need someone else's approval to keep the lights on. And that kind of stability, that's the beginning of real strength. That night, I pulled open the top drawer of my dresser. Inside sat my father's old wristwatch. The leather strap cracked with age, the face scratched from years of use, but it still ticked, steady, relentless. I remembered his words from long ago. Respect is quiet, son. It's not loud. It's how you carry yourself when no one's clapping. I slipped the watch on. The weight wasn't heavy. It was grounding. It reminded me of long talks on the porch, of a man who never shouted but was always heard, a man who built respect not by demanding it, but by living it. And as I tightened the strap, I made my choice. I wouldn't bend. I wouldn't beg. I'd stand straight, even if I stood alone. Because some legacies aren't written in money. They're worn quietly on your wrist and carried forward in silence. After I tightened my father's watch, another voice surfaced Margaret's. Emily's mother didn't raise her on fairy tales. She raised her on spreadsheets. I still remember her kitchen table, yellow lamp, black coffee, a legal pad lined with numbers. Discipline protects you when charm runs out, she'd say, drawing columns for assets, debt, and risk. Irony is a cruel teacher. The woman who taught balance sheets now watched her daughter default on character. I replayed our last real talk months before all this, Margaret asking quiet questions, hearing what Emily never said. She wasn't sentimental. She was surgical. Truth first, loyalties second. In my head, she's back at that table tapping a pen, totaling the damage. The sum is simple choices have interest, and it compounds. She didn't defend Emily to me. She defended the facts. And the facts, they were on my side. Which is why when the phone finally rang again, I let it go to voicemail. Her voice arrived as a recording, jagged, breathy, stitched with sobs. "Mark, please, just talk to me. This isn't who we are. I'm sorry." There was a time that tone could unhook my spine. Not anymore. I listened once. Once was enough. Not to savor it, to confirm it. Because apology isn't restitution, and tears aren't terms. I forwarded the file to my attorney with a single-line respond per policy, then archived it. No reply. No late-night detours back to the past. Just the boundary I set doing its job like a locked door. I stood at the window, city lights blinking like small truths. I didn't feel triumph. I felt alignment. My actions finally matching my standards. If respect is quiet, then enforcement is quieter. Her voicemail ended on a broken whisper. "Please." I ended it with a stronger one. Enough. And the next morning, I drove a route I used to avoid on purpose. The building rose out of the morning like a mirror blue glass chrome edges, sun striking hard off every pane. Halbrook and Partners, where she once walked like she owned gravity. I slowed by the curb and caught my reflection in the facade, not the man who endured, the man who exited. No spike of anger, no acid in my throat, just a steady breath and a steering wheel under my hands. I watched a parade of suits file in coffee cups raised like shields. The revolving door kept spinning, indifferent as ever. That's the thing about institutions, they always look forward. The past becomes paperwork. For a second I remembered holding her badge while she fixed her lipstick in this very reflection. That memory used to cut. Today it laid flat like a receipt filed and forgotten. Green light, foot on the gas. The glass shrank in the rear view until it was just glare. Chapter closed. And in that bright quiet, a new road finally opened. After the glass and sunlight faded, I chose a different mirror the trail. New running shoes, cool air like a rinse for the lungs, gravel crunching underfoot steady as a metronome, first mile stiffness and rust. Second breath finds rhythm. Third, the body remembers I'm built to move forward. I don't chase a finish line. I chase the feeling of blood waking up every quiet part of me. Sweat beads, then breaks salt stinging eyes, truth stinging deeper. Pain leaves the body the way steam leaves a kettle, slow then, all at once. Heart thumps, arms swing, mind clears. There's no audience here, no scoreboard, just a man, a path, and the sound of effort paying rent. On the final hill, I push harder than comfort allows. Not to beat a time, to beat the version of me that stayed. At the crest, hands on knees, breath like fire, I smile into the wind. Recovery isn't a speech. It's a sweat stain, and later that night, I meet the kind of men who understand without asking. Sports bar, neon lights, game on 3 screens, burgers and cheap beer, the holy sacraments of Saturday. We don't talk therapy, we talk 4th and 1. We talk bad calls, good wings, and what a fair shake looks like after 40. Nobody pries, nobody performs. It's a place where silence isn't awkward, it's respected. One friend slides over, studies me for half a second, then taps my shoulder. Not heavy, just enough. Hey, we got you. That's it. No paragraphs. Just a sentence that lands like solid ground under a shaky bridge. We watch the drive. Quarterback drops back, finds the window, threads it. Whole place erupts. I don't erupt. I exhale. Because belonging doesn't always feel like confetti. Sometimes it feels like a nod from men who've carried their own weight too. When the tab lands, a hand beats me to it. Next time he says, I lift the bottle in thanks, not toast. And Monday, when the emails hit like blitzes, I'll be ready to stand in the pocket. Monday arrives with teeth. Boss knocks on my doorframe, big account. Messy numbers, tight deadline. Your point. I don't grandstand. I map. Whiteboard lines like highways tasks, sequenced risks boxed in red. Head down, head clear. Overtime, that actually means something. Spreadsheets hum, assumptions get interrogated. The story in the numbers stops lying. We pull a late one team tired me calm. I pour coffee, crack a window, let cold air wake the room. At 2:13 a.m., the model finally balances. No leaks, no wishful thinking, just clean. I send the deck before dawn, tight slides, bulletproof footnotes, a conclusion you can drive a truck across. By noon, the email lands clean, precise. You led well. Not fireworks. Validation. The kind that sticks because it's tied to proof. I don't forward it. I file it. Because I'm not building a parade, I'm building a record. And that record, it sets the table for what comes next, teaching other quiet men how to hold the line. Recognition is nice. Discipline is better. Men asked how I stayed steady. Here's how. First document. Screenshots, dates, receipts. Emotions fade. Timestamps don't. Second, don't perform. No public blow-ups. Anger feeds their alibi. Third, protect the exits. Bank, title, insurance, move your safety first. When you're hurt, you want to swing. Swinging feels good for 10 seconds and costs you for 10 years. I chose the opposite. I chose quiet strength. I kept the camera on her words, not mine. Kept my hands on the wheel, not the horn. Let evidence do what rage never could close doors. And when people call it revenge, I correct them. It wasn't hot revenge. It was cold responsibility. That's the lesson. Be the man who outlasts the storm because he planned the shelter before the clouds rolled in. And, while I built something else, started collapsing, not in my life, in hers. You can tell when a brand dies. The noise stops. Her LinkedIn stopped buzzing. No green dots. No friendly pings. Connection requests that used to flood in dried up. Emails bounced back with the digital shrug address not found. Endorsements disappeared like smoke. That open to work banner hung there like a cardboard sign in a rainstorm. The same people who worshipped her energy suddenly had meetings they couldn't miss. Comments turned cold, then silent. Silence is louder than slander in the corporate world. It means you don't exist. On her phone, I imagine the notification bar blank, stubbornly blank. No new notifications. That's what happens when a network realizes you were a transaction, not a teammate. While her grid went gray, my calendar filled with actual work, actual people, actual respect. And as that digital quiet hardened around her, my ally sent the final piece that would make the silence permanent. It arrived at 7:03 a.m. Subject line, clean final memo. Inside a masterwork. Timeline exhibits policy citations. Invoices aligned to travel logs, audio to expense codes. Every loose thread tied into a noose of facts. Ryan's note was short. Thanks for trusting me at the right moment. No victory lap, just closure. We met for coffee, 2 black, no sugar. No speeches, just a handshake that said everything we did this the right way. We did it once. He slid a printed copy across the table tabs, highlights a spine of staples like a steel backbone. This wasn't ammunition, it was architecture, the structure that keeps the roof from collapsing in court or negotiation. I tucked it into my briefcase, felt the weight, and stood taller. The prep was done. The record was airtight. And the next move wouldn't be loud, it would be legal. Because after truth is built, there's only one step left. Sign where it ends. With Ryan's memo in my briefcase, the rest moved like clockwork. Conference room. Neutral walls. 2 attorneys, 1 paralegal. A term sheet slid across clean columns, hard numbers, no romance. Timeline of dissolution. Asset split minimized to what the law requires, nothing more, nothing less. No future claims. No parting gifts. No fantasy clauses. I read every line. No tremor, no second thoughts. The pen felt balanced in my hand like a tool, not a weapon. Her counsel tried a soft pitch about healing optics. My lawyer didn't blink. We prefer enforceable terms over optics. I initialed the margins, turned to the last page, and signed with steady strokes. Not triumph, certainty. The paralegal collected the copy's staplers, snapping like tiny gavels. A calendar invite hit my phone. Finalization hearing. Confirmed. I stood, shook one hand, and left the papers behind where they belonged, in a file not in my life. Next stop was simpler, more physical. A key, a counter, a goodbye to 4 walls. Late afternoon orange lights spilling low across the parking lot. One last box in the bed of my truck, a blanket, a photo frame, a screwdriver I didn't know we owned. The house looked smaller than I remembered, maybe because I wasn't trying to fit myself into its corners anymore. I walked through rooms that had already forgotten our arguments, checked the empty drawers, wiped a countertop out of habit, then locked the door for the last time. At the HOA office, the lobby smelled like toner and old carpet. No audience, no violins, just a counter and a bowl of paper clips. I set the keys down, house garage mailbox metal on laminate, a sound like a chapter snapping shut. Signed a simple receipt. Date, time, done. On the way out, I didn't look back at the windows. Houses don't miss you. They just hold whoever comes next. The sun slid lower shadows, lengthening across the asphalt. It felt like stepping out of a suit that never fit. And, for the first time in months, I was hungry. I didn't celebrate. I ate. Corner booth. Steak medium rare char lines like map coordinates. Cold beer sweating on a coaster. Classic rock crackling from a radio that's older than half the staff. No candlelight, no speeches, just a plate that stayed hot and a seat that stayed honest. Across from me, an empty chair. For years, that emptiness would have felt like failure. Tonight, it felt like space, room to breathe, room to rebuild. I cut slowly, tasted salt and smoke, and let the quiet do its work. No phone on the table. No checking for messages that never brought peace. I lifted the glass toward that empty chair. Not a toast, a nod. To endings done clean. To beginnings earned, not granted. Outside, a neon sign buzzed to life, painting the sidewalk red. I paid the tab, left a good tip, and stepped into the night with the kind of hunger that isn't about food. Because next comes the part men forget to plan for how to live well in the life you saved. After the steak and the walk, I sat in the truck and dialed a number I'd been dodging Mom. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, honey, you okay?" Streetlights stitched gold across the windshield. I watched my breath fog the glass and said the truest thing I'd said in months. "I'm not just okay, Mom. I'm peaceful." She didn't fill the space with advice. No lists, no questions, just a soft exhale I've known since Little League and skinned knees. We talked about simple things. Work the weather, the dog she swears is smarter than me. Then the conversation did what good conversations do. It thinned to silence. I smiled. She must have felt it through the line because I heard her smile back. No lecture. No, "I told you so." Just two people breathing at the same time. "Call me if you need anything," she said. "I will," I answered. We both knew I already had what I needed, my footing. Peace is a habit before it's a feeling, so I wrote mine down. Morning's run. Shoes by the door, alarm at 5:30, no snooze. Breath pavement sunrise, 3 small wins before emails exist. Midday work, 1 task list, no noise. Calendar blocks that protect deep focus like a locked vault. Evenings read, lamp on, phone face down. A chapter instead of doom scroll, a notebook instead of a feed. I turned off notifications. If the world needs me, it can knock. Weekends, laundry, groceries, oil change the unglamorous scaffolding of a clean life. I didn't announce it, didn't post a quote. I just did it again and again until the routine stopped being new and started being me. Some people chase reinvention like a costume change. I wasn't chasing anything. I was returning to the man who keeps promises to himself when no one's watching. And in that quiet cadence, I finally recognized the sound of my own engine running right. If you're a man watching this with a knot in your chest, hear me. Don't sell your self-respect to keep a broken piece. Don't argue where a screenshot will do. Don't swing where a signature wins. Write things down. Prepare before the storm. Act when the line is crossed. You don't have to be loud to be strong. You have to be steady. People will tell you silence is weakness. Sometimes it is. But the silence I'm talking about is different. It's the stillness where plans form, boundaries harden, and evidence stacks. Hot revenge burns you too. Cold responsibility saves you. Say it with me. Silence won't kill me. Impulse will. If this hit you, drop a simple "I hear you" in the comments. Share this with the guy who needs it. Subscribe and stay. There's more to this story, and it might be the map you've been missing. Pick a side. Stay small or stand up. Your move. After telling you to stand steady, let me show you the other road, the one I didn't take. Picture it. I storm the ballroom, voice up, veins out. Security swarms. I'm the disruptive spouse. Her tears become theater, and I'm cast as the villain. Phones catch my anger, not her words. HR remembers my volume, not her invoices. Ryan keeps his distance. Compliance won't touch a public brawl. By morning, I'm the story. And the story helps her. Now rewind. Quiet exit. Streetlight. Cold air. A call to the right ally. Evidence stacking where rage would have scattered. Documents speaking where I would have shouted. One path felt easy for 10 seconds and costly for 10 years. The other felt hard tonight and right forever. That's why I chose silence, sharpened into strategy. I picked the harder road, but the truer one. And once you see that clearly, another question shows up, the one men confuse most. Forgiveness isn't pretending it didn't happen. Forgiveness is releasing the debt you can't collect without bankrupting yourself. Letting go is different. It's the boundary that says you don't get to do this to me again. I don't excuse what she did. I don't rewrite it. I don't carry it either. I can wish her clarity while refusing her access. I can keep my heart clean and my door locked. Here's how I hold it. I forgive to free me. I let go to protect me. No reconciliation, no reunion, no revenge tour, just alignment, values, actions, consequences in one straight line. So when people ask if I hate her, I tell the truth. Hate is too heavy for long drives and early runs. I set it down. I chose release over resentment, not softness, sanity. And with that weight off my shoulders, there was one last thing to do, say the unsent words and let the wind keep them. I wrote her a letter. No blame, no barbs. Just the facts of our marriage laid out like a clean ledger, what we built, where we broke, what I learned. I thanked the early years that were real. I named the late years that weren't. I wrote the sentence I needed for closure. You didn't ruin me. You revealed me. Then I folded the paper twice. No envelope. No stamp. I stood by the open window of my new apartment. Evening breeze moved the blinds like slow breathing. Street noise rose and fell, a city heartbeat I could finally hear. I tore the letter down the crease. Then again, and again, white confetti of a life I no longer had to carry. The scraps lifted, spun once in the draft, and slipped out into the dark. Not lost, just gone. I closed the window, locked it, and with my hands finally empty, I was ready to put them back on the wheel and turn toward what's next. I made a short list on a clean page. Certification enroll this quarter. Night classes, no excuses. Road trip west to Red Rock and Big Sky miles that rinse the mind. Dog shelter middle-aged mutt. Someone who understands second chances. I booked the first module. Pinned a map across the wall, red string through national parks like arteries, scrolled rescue sites until I saw a pair of tired eyes that looked like mine used to. Hold for Mark, I typed. The apartment smelled like coffee and fresh plans. I packed a small bag, boots, books, a toolbox for whatever rattles on the way. No trophies, no ghosts. At the door, I paused, fingers on the deadbolt. Debt to the past, settled. Interest on the future, mine to earn. I turned the lock, opened wide, and let the sun walk in. No speeches, no soundtrack. Just a man stepping forward, and a day that doesn't owe yesterday a thing. Sun on my floor, keys on the hook, a plan on the wall. That's the picture I want you to remember. She called me worthless. Truth is, I was strong enough to walk, to keep my voice low, my paperwork tight, and my future mine. Silence wasn't weakness. It was aim. Law wasn't punishment. It was boundary. Preparation wasn't paranoia. It was respect for myself. I didn't win by making noise. I won by making sense. Here's the lesson I paid for: guard your dignity like an asset. Build your exit before you ever need it. Let evidence speak where anger wants to scream. Say it with me so it sticks. Best revenge isn't fire, it's clarity. Now it's your turn. Do you forgive in a way that frees you, or do you act to protect what's yours? Drop I choose clarity if this hit home. Share it with the man who needs a map. Subscribe and stay. There's more on building quiet strength, one solid choice at a time.